As a clinical psychologist, I think structure, having some good daily structure in your life, in your week, is always important. But you know when it is especially important is after the breakup of a romantic relationship. If you have a breakup, you are simply going to be dealing with a loss that is a loss in many different ways. Think if you end a romantic relationship about all the different types of things that you may have had before and you may now be missing. One simple example is physical affection. If there was physical affection in that relationship, that will be a loss. If you felt like there was companionship in that relationship, that will be another loss. There are all sorts of things that a person will come to realize they will have lost, and they will have to go through a kind of grieving process as a result once they have a romantic breakup. When you have a romantic breakup, if this is you and this is something that you're going through now, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to make a conscious effort to set up extra structure in your daily life. Now, why do you think extra structure may be so important during this period? Do you have any ideas why structure would be more important after a breakup than even before, for example? Well, one of the reasons has to do with something called rumination. Rumination is like overthinking about things that make you feel bad. Rumination. And when you have a breakup, there are inevitably, or at least usually most of the time, gonna be a whole mix of negative feelings, maybe sadness and anger, disappointment. The list, I believe, is really endless that you can feel when you're dealing with a breakup. Well, the thing is, you can feel those feelings, but if you think too much about the fact that you're having some of these negative feelings, if you feel sad, but then you think too much about your circumstances, maybe you think things like, I don't know if I'll ever find somebody again, or maybe you question or doubt whether you should have ended that relationship to begin with. Maybe you feel angry or paranoid or distrustful about the relationship you just ended. And you find yourself sort of replaying things they said or did, wondering, for example, if they may have been faithful to you the whole time, or going back through the archives in your memory and thinking about all these different things that happened and wondering, well, what was that? All of these examples are examples of rumination that a person can engage in, overthinking about negative content. And that's what you don't want to do. That's one of the main reasons why you do want to set up more good structure in your daily life so that you don't feel prone to basically just sitting around and feeling bad. And actually, when you think more, then feeling even worse. Okay. Now, there is some real value, no doubt, in feeling your feelings. I always love one of my favorite things that I learned in graduate school is from a professor who said this. She said, the goal is to feel your feelings, but to not live in them. So, yes, there is a time and a place when you're dealing with a breakup to feel your feelings. In fact, you have to deal with those feelings. You have to admit that you have the whole range of feelings in order to work through them. And then one day to get over them, to move past those feelings. But sitting and thinking about those feelings, letting yourself wallow or get stuck in those feelings for too long is really going to not serve you in the end. It is going to make your mood worse. It is going to increase your anxiety. It is also going to make you feel a little less trust in yourself, actually. Why would that be? Why could something like this make a person feel even less trusting of themselves? Because deep down, and especially when we are struggling, we need to have a sense that we know how to take care of ourselves, that we know what to do to feel better. So if we are responsible for our own thoughts and feelings, and we find ourselves wallowing in just feeling worse because we keep over focusing on what we lost because of a breakup, there's going to be a psychological disconnect there because you're going to have proof. Deep down, you're going to be asking yourself a question like, why can't I help myself feel better? Or even more, why am I doing certain things like overthinking or ruminating that make myself feel worse? Why am I over checking that person's social media? Why am I going back and sort of reviewing all the good times and looking at things through a microscope when actually the relationship probably wasn't all good or it wouldn't have ended? All right. So when you're vulnerable, when your defenses, your psychological defenses that normally keep you up and feeling okay, feeling good about yourself, when those defenses are down because you're dealing with something like a breakup, you need to feel trust in yourself that you engage in activities that will serve you well, where you know how to take care of yourself. Okay. And so, some of the things that you can do to implement more structure, set out on like a plan. Well, you just broke up. And so, for the next, let's say 2 weeks, for example, the next 2 weeks could be especially difficult. Each day, you can map out some things that you will do that can sort of vent out some of that excess physical energy that you may have. Maybe this is time to up the frequency of you exercising or going to the gym. Maybe it's time to fulfill a part of your extracurricular life that has gone unfulfilled. If you're somebody who likes arts and crafts, get out an art set, get out something and start doing it. And in fact, you'd serve yourself well to even call a friend over and do something like that with your friend, because that way you get a little social connection too. So those are a couple of examples. Now, other people find, for example, that setting specific goals, let's just start with your house, for example. If you have a house, maybe it's time to organize the garage. Wouldn't focusing some of your energy on something productive be good for you? Or another example could be that file cabinet or drawers in your kitchen that have been driving you nuts. Use this time and take all of that kind of energy, some of that nervous energy, that confusing mix of emotional energy people have when they break up, and set some little goals so that you can have more structure to your day. If you do this, ultimately, what you will feel is a little bit more sense of purpose and also hopefulness. And I would say that's what people really need when they're dealing with a loss, is some sort of sense of hopefulness for a future that's going to be okay. And you know what? Maybe even better. I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist. You may also find some other videos on relationship advice helpful on the whole section of my YouTube channel, Relationship Advice.